Bye. I love you. Birthday star view. Hello. I need to make this so quick because there are so many spiders. And I'm trying to not lose it. I am a 22-year-old aspiring author who makes videos documenting her writing journey. Yeah, I'm just excited to be here and to relax and to reset and to do some writing and to do some planning. I really want to find some places where I can sit down and do some work, and I'm excited to take you along. It's gonna be a fun time. Okay, now I'm gonna get out of here because there are so many spiders and I feel like I'm dying. Okay, I didn't get that much writing done, but I did find some really good places where I think that I could potentially work. I'm excited to do that tomorrow. I did some more character exploration for Addie, which I'm really excited about. Overall though, I'd say it was a successful, relaxing reset day, and I'm excited for tomorrow. We got some cake, and it's very yummy. and I'm just gonna eat that and probably do some more work and see what I can get done, and then go to bed. The lighting is doing a lot of very interesting things. It's doing a lot of very interesting things. So ignore that. Ignore the lighting and just focus on the words. My hair almost gave me heat stroke, so I did in fact cut it, and I think that's great because we're going back to the bit of having a different hairdo per video. Before we proceed, I have something very important to show you, which is this. Do you see this? It's a blanket with my OCs on it. Yeah. Hello, hi, welcome back to my channel. Nice to meet you, or nice to see you again. My name is Kakayo. I am a 22-year-old aspiring author who is documenting her journey towards writing, towards publishing, just documenting life as an aspiring writer. I don't know if this is going to be its own individual video or if I'm going to have a segment in a video that I already plan on doing. Does that make any sense? But regardless, thank you for being here, and also thank you for 1,000 subscribers. I'm so glad that so many people are interested in following along my writing journey and just seeing my chaos process, frankly. So thank you for being here. If you are here, I greatly appreciate you. And I thought to celebrate, I have a little Q&A. I asked a couple questions on Instagram, which is down below, and I asked in my YouTube community. There's a lot of fuzz flying there. I asked in my YouTube community, and I asked in the comment section in my last video, and I got a handful of questions. If you asked a question, thank you so much. I was like, 2 people are gonna ask a question, and that's it. So I just thought I'd go through and answer them, and I guess kind of properly, fully introduce. I feel like we already know each other by now, but really in depth, letting you peek into my brain now that there's more of us here, you know. I have a couple questions here. Some of them are writing related, some are book related. Well, the majority of them are writing related, and then others are book related, and then there's just life questions. So I think we'll get through the writing ones first because that's the most chunky section. The first question I have is from, I have a couple questions from them. From my best friend in the whole world who I love so much. I love you. Thank you for the question. Do you ever think about who would play your characters if their respective books were turned into movies? Which is so interesting, and I did read these questions ahead of time, so I've come prepared. I don't fully keep abreast on like the up and coming actors and actresses of this generation, but I do have answers. So if you don't know, the book that I'm currently working on, what I'm currently revising, is Letters to Tomorrow, or Letters, and it's a romantic contemporary novel. Yeah. And I have 2 main characters, Addie and Elliot. Wait. I have two main characters, Addie and Elliot. Oh shit. And Elliot. I don't do a lot of like fan casting in my head. I just kind of go off of Pinterest vibes. But I think Addie, get out of here. Ayo Adebiri would probably be an amazing Addie, which is perfect because Addie is Nigerian American, and Ayo Adebiri, she has Nigerian blood on her dad's side. I did my research. And for Elliot, I don't know. Elliot is tall, he's lanky, he's Afro-Dominican. If you have any ideas, you let me know. The second question they asked was, do you have a favorite character you've ever written, and who is it? So, this YouTube channel is still relatively new. I feel like you guys know about 2 of my projects so far, which is my middle grade fantasy and my upper YA contemporary, but I obviously have written a lot of other things apart from those. The Blinds are blind, and I feel like the first character to come to my mind is Josie. She's a character that I wrote for, after I wrote Letters, I wrote another college contemporary called The Art of Figuring It Out, which was truthfully just, it's the book of my heart, I think. I would say I'm a pretty optimistic person. She is probably the most pessimistic character I've written to date. She's me, but the pessimistic side of me, and the side of me that is like, the side of me that was lonely in college, and just, I love her so much. I do think she's my favorite character I've ever written, and I think she's my funniest character I've ever written. But I also love her love interest, August. I love them. They're my babies. I love August. So the next question I got from Lynn, whose channel I love, and she asked, what is your greatest source of motivation as a writer? Which I think is a great question. My greatest source of motivation is spite. I think as readers, because writers were also readers, or at least you should be, I found a lot of solace and comfort in books, and especially my favorite books, and just the books that make me feel like I've been enveloped and warm and understood. And my biggest motivation is I just want someone to one day pick up a book of mine and read about my main character and be like, oh my god, she gets it. The stage of life I'm in right now is where she is, and that's going to help me understand myself and my circumstances, because I've had so many books where I've just been in the weirdest spot, in the weirdest place, and I open them and I read them at the exact right moment, and it's like, this has changed my life for the better. And I really want that. I want that for me, for someone else. But also spite is a very big motivation for me. I think hope is a very stubborn thing, right? And I have so much of it, but sometimes it runs dry. And in those times, there's a lot of spite against myself, where it's like, sometimes I'm my biggest critic, and I'm gonna publish a book, dang it, I'm gonna do it, and I'm gonna be pushed by that spite. I've seen other people do it, and it motivates me a lot when I read someone's deal announcement or like a query, and I'm so happy for them, but I'm also like, I need to get there. I need to see my book on the shelf. Next question is also from another AuthorTuber channel that I love, Chris, and she asked, would love to know more about your writing journey and how you got into writing, which I think is a great question. All of these are fantastic questions. My writing journey, I feel like it's a little cliched to say that I've been reading and writing my whole life, but yeah, I have been. I would say I feel like the first time I remember writing a story was when I was in boarding school in Nigeria. I was in boarding school from the ages, like, I think 11 to 13 or 10 to 13, one of them. I used to read a lot, obviously, because what else can you do in that? No phones were allowed and all that stuff, so there's just a lot of reading. And I would write a lot of, now that I think about it, a lot of disturbed books. I'd write a lot of horror books and composition books, and that was a big source of comfort for me. And then I kind of let go of writing in general until I moved here, and then came sophomore year of high school, and I had moved by then, and I read for the first time the Lunar Chronicles, the series. Let me tell you something, changed my brain chemistry. I owe a lot to that book because it reignited my love for reading, it reignited my love for writing, it did a lot of things for me. And I don't know if you guys have seen, there's this YouTube channel called Shitty Book Club, I think, and she just like sits down and talks about the plots of books, and it's so entertaining. It's so entertaining. I really want to do that for the Lunar Chronicles, but not on this channel, like on maybe like a Kaya Reads or something, and just like talk about the plots and just gush about how much I love those books. I haven't read them in a while, but essentially I reread those books and I was like, I can actually do this. And that was the first time that I started taking writing seriously, with the aspiration of like wanting to be an author. And up until that point, I didn't really know. Obviously, I'm in 10th grade. What do you know about what you want to do for the rest of your life? But I hadn't had an actual inkling So it felt like something foundational for me. But that's probably like the short version of my writing journey. I went to college and I studied English with a focus in creative writing. Yeah, and now we're here. I still have, the first books I wrote, again, were horror. I still have a lot of love for gothics and spooky books. I do have a lot of gothic ideas, actually, that I want to explore, because the horror part of my heart has never left. I do have a sapphic gothic idea for Nano, and maybe I'll do it. I don't know. We'll see. Stay tuned. Next question I have here is, what's your favorite genre to write? And that's interesting because I feel like I write pretty across the board a lot. I've written high fantasy, I've written contemporary fantasy, I've written sci-fi, I've written dystopia, I've written romance, I've written just contemporary. I've written or had ideas for gothics. I don't know. I think that the first thing that came to my mind was contemporary fantasy, so I feel like that's probably, I think that's the genre of my heart. I also really love, I love romance, but I don't know if I love to read romance more than I love to write it, like just romance as a genre. I do have a lot of romance ideas though that I 100% will be writing. I love things rooted in the real world regardless of what genre it is. Contemporary fantasy, contemporary romance. I just love contemporary things, I think. The next question I have is, what is your hopeful date to finish your projects, and advice for aspiring writers who are lacking motivation? Letters right now, I'm in the process of revising. I don't really have, my kind of loose deadline to get my revisions done is October 11th, because I believe that's the day of DV Pit, and I would like to, which if you don't know, DV Pit is a pitching event for marginalized, uneducated authors, and I would like to participate in that, but I'm not gonna, if I don't get it done by then, it's not gonna be the end of the world, but I would like to get the revisions done at least by the end of October, so October 31st. Advice for aspiring writers lacking motivation. I, first of all, been there, understand the lack of motivation. I think a lot of times when you're aspiring for something, it feels like you are in this race and you have to continually be running towards the end goal of finally bringing that dream to fruition. And a lot of times we tend to not allow ourselves the time to sit down and rest. I think if you are feeling burnt out or you're lacking motivation in any way, then maybe put the writing aside for now and refill your creative well. I think just refilling your creative well by other means, and not sometimes you need to push yourself if you're just stalling, but a lot of times we need to be gentle with ourselves, and we need to just sit down and watch a movie, watch a TV show, read a book, listen to a podcast, do something else that when you listen to it fills you with awe and reminds you of why you want to create stories in the first place, and that mode oftentimes is enough to push me to find that motivation again to go forth and conquer. If that made any sense at all. I don't know. Next question is, what is the first sentence of your WIP? And the first sentence of Letters is technically the prologue, which is a love letter, which reading it out of context doesn't make a lot of sense. But I'll share. The prologue goes, "Dammy, excuse me if my writing is sloppy. I haven't got much time before you and Nedra come back from the bathroom, and I'm trying not to look too conspicuous writing this. Dex is shielding me with her bag. She says hi." So that's the first sentence of the love letter. That's the prologue. But the first chapter 1 first sentence is, "Addie was quite certain she was lost." And that's it. And then for my middle grade contemporary Kaya, the first sentence, which I know from the top of my head, is, "Kaya Gizzard had many problems, but the main one, of course, was her name. Do you have special food for when you hit a certain word count or chapter?" I don't, but I should. I guess maybe just in general, to spin this question around, if I have any rewards I give myself for finishing word counts or chapters. Most of the time when I finish a story, my reward is to commission art, as I'm sure you've seen. But that's usually my big reward once I finish the first draft, is to get art of the characters done, and it makes me so happy. My goal for when I finish Kaya at some point one day, hopefully, is to get art commissioned of the main three, Kaya, Penelope, and Ren, by one of my best friends. She's an artist and she's fantastic. She actually asked me a question, so I'll get to her later. But yeah. Next question. How do you schedule yourself to hit your word count goals? I found, for me personally, having goals focused on word count isn't super efficient and doesn't make me want to write. So most of the time I will break up my writing into chapters or specific scenes or beats that I want to hit or acts that I want to get done. So like, for example, for revisions, I'll be like, you know, I want to revise until the inciting incident, and how many chapters is that? 5 chapters? And then I break that down based on how extensive the edits are. If it's for writing, same thing. I just mainly go off of scenes that I'm excited to write, or specific plot beats, and that's kind of how I go about my writing. And regarding when it comes to how I schedule myself to hit those goals, it's mainly I give myself, you know, there's the big goal of writing the book or finishing the revision, and then I break it down into little chunks of like finishing Act 1 and what does it take to finish Act 1 to write this many chapters. And I don't know if this is making any sense at all, but it's just about breaking it down into bite-sized chunks. And then I go weekly from there. How I schedule myself to hit my goals. I just have daily, weekly, monthly, and we knock it out from there. Next question, are you going to self-pub or go trad? And I am pursuing traditional publishing. Self-publishing is like, self-published authors inspire me because there's so much that goes into self-publishing a book. I feel like the marketing and the design, the cover, there's so many aspects, and I'm too frazzled of a person to juggle that many things. If you have imposter syndrome, how do you deal with it? I don't. I don't know. I don't know. I have a lot of imposter syndrome, actually. Yeah, imposter syndrome is something that I struggle with in so many aspects of my life that it's not even funny. It's not funny. I have therapy for it. But I don't know. I think to some degree I'm always, okay, for me, speaking for me, to some degree I'm always going to have those voices in my head that's like, you're not as good as you think you are. And actually you are not deserving of the success that you may be having. And most of the time I talk to someone about it. The only thing I found for me that helps with imposter syndrome when it comes to writing is just to keep writing, and to hope that you get too into the story to care. I think I reach a point where it's like, I don't think I'm that good of a writer, I don't think that I'm that good of a creator, but I have this story that I feel like could help someone, or I have this story I feel someone could see themselves in, and ultimately I think that story deserves to be told. And you just gotta push through it. I don't know. It's really hard. It's very difficult, and I don't exactly have the answers of how to deal with it except to just keep going. Next question, what advice would you offer to newbie writers? I think the biggest advice is advice that a lot of people give, and that is to read and read a lot. But I also think not just reading. I feel like just surrounding yourself by stories, regardless of the medium, whether that be reading or movies or TV shows, just surround yourself by both good and bad. My camera did just go off, but it's okay. And just a lot of stories, and it really helps you figure out what you like and what you want to say, and what you have to bring to the table, and what you don't like. Whilst reading, read outside of your typical genres and read outside of your typical age group. There are sometimes specific patterns that an age group adheres to, or writing for an age group adheres to, or writing for a genre. and that changes depending on the genre you're reading or the age group you're reading. I feel like the moment my writing greatly improved was when I started to read more diversely, and I branched out of just YA fantasies. There was a while where all I read really was YA fantasy, and I started to read, you know, contemporaries and adult literary fiction and romance. And there's so much that you can learn from other people's writing that you don't even realize you're sort of absorbing it and making it your own. And I feel like one thing that really elevated my writing was just reading more widely and reading a lot of literary fiction and figuring out how I love to structure sentences and the different ways sentences can flow, and just seeing the various ways people write and figuring out what I like, what I don't like. But yeah, so not just reading, just consume a lot of stories and practice. That sounds weird, but a lot of times a lot of my writing also really improved when I started writing short stories. I don't write a lot of short stories now, but I wrote a lot of short stories for college. And it helped me so much because I wrote genres that I'd never written before, age groups that I'd never written before. I wrote adult literary short stories, and I'd read a lot of adult literary fiction and see some of the different ways people constructed their sentences and worked with lyricism and the flow and fluidity of words. And I'd write and rewrite until I got to a point where it felt like my work was on par with that, or I guess not on par because, oh my god, I guess not on par with it, but closer to it. So don't be afraid to write a bad first draft and fix it and work on sentence structure and ask yourself, how else can I present this information, and what is the tone I'm going for? What can I do? What can I add to the sentence or this paragraph or this story to get the tone that I want? Is this making any sense? I have no idea. It's just a lot of writing and rewriting and reading and expanding, and I hope that's helpful at all. I have no idea. The next question, what's your writing process like? I have a lot of videos planned in October for Preptober that have a lot to do with my writing process and my brainstorming and outlining process and my character creation process and just all of that. So I will be having a lot of videos that go more in depth into my process in the future. But from the ideation stage of a novel, I'm a planster, I'd say. So most of the time I'll plan out Act 1 and then up to halfway of Act 2, and then I'll get impatient and I just start writing. And sometimes it works out for me, sometimes it doesn't. I'm trying to lean more into the planner side now and to at least have an outline for the whole thing, or just bullet points or something before I go into a project so I don't get stuck midway. It's a chaos process, baby. We're just here for the ride. I get an idea. Most of the time it's just a premise, so I flush it out. I have a big just brain dumping session. A lot of times I will harass my friends. I will harass my best friend and send them like a million messages whilst I figure out and untangle the story. And then after I brain dump, I create a Pinterest board, which is actually it's a very important part of my process. I create a Pinterest board with the general vibes and aesthetics. I create a playlist on Spotify. I create like pick crews of the characters, and then I start to do like my little bullet point outline of just the scenes, just the whole thing from Act 1, Act 2, Act 3, if there's an Act 4 and Act 4 or whatever. But most of the time I will do the bullet points up to like the midpoint, and then I'm like, screw it, we ball. I'm just gonna write it because I get impatient. This was very discombobulated and not super in-depth. I will have videos coming up of my actual process and what I do coming soon to the channel, so stay tuned. All right, the next question is from one of my best friends who is an artist who does amazing art, and I will leave her art Instagram down below. And she asked me, what helps you the most when it comes to making your characters feel more real while in early development with them? And I love this question because I love characters. I'm a very character motivated reader and writer. But one thing that I have to do with every single character of mine, and it's intrinsic to the process, is I have to do a zodiac test and I have to do an Enneagram or MBTI test for all of the major players. And you know what? It sounds silly, but it's so essential for me to just figure out the foundation of the character. Obviously, we as humans, we are so much more than a zodiac or an Enneagram, if you even believe in zodiac. It's more like, for me, it's more of a personality thing. We're more than that, but it helps us just like a foundation of where to start, where it's like, okay, in essence, this person is this and this, and they're meticulous, and they're orderly, and they're type A. It's just like a foundational thing, and it helps me ask, like, okay, if this is a very Virgo-y, meticulous character, going off of what I said before, why are they that way? What led them to be this way? It's a lot of nature versus nurture. Is this characteristic something that's just intrinsically them, or is it something that's or is it something that's developed based off of history? What is that history? Why are they like this? Essentially, why are they like this? And then from there, it just develops and it grows and it blooms and it becomes more nuanced as you go. Next question, what's the easiest and hardest part of writing a story? I'll tell you what the hardest part is, and that's writing the story. Yeah, I think it depends on the story, but a lot of times Act 2 is the hardest part for me. It's just, I think this is an almost universal thing. Act 2 is hell. But yeah, most of the time writing the story is the hardest part of writing the story. I struggle a lot with, if I'm writing a fantasy book, developing the world. Oh my god, the cat just jumped on me. I struggle a lot with developing the world. It's just very difficult for me. If I'm writing a fantasy novel specifically, it's very difficult for me, and I'm the type of person who needs to spend a lot of time on world building, but I'm also impatient when it comes to writing and I just want to get into it. I'd say world building is usually the hardest part of writing for me. And the easiest part of writing a story is probably dialogue. I love dialogue. Dialogue comes to me so fast. Most of the time when I'm brain dumping dialogue. And it's just, I constantly, at almost every point in the day, I have characters speaking in my head, and then some of it is just like witty banter that I'll write down, or something, or an internal dialogue, or like a thought that a character has, and I write that down. I love writing dialogue, and I also love description, and I tend to lean on the more atmospheric side of writing. To a fault. Sometimes I get too bogged up with details, but I love describing a scene, and I love describing not just how it looks, but how it feels, how it tastes, how it smells, what emotions it's eliciting for the characters. I love description, and I love immersing the reader in the world, and like fully. I love painting it with color. I love writing. Writing is so fun. Writing is so great. The hardest part of writing is writing. The easiest part of writing is writing. The next question, and the last question in the writing section, is when did you realize writing was your passion? Which is a question, again, by one of my best friends. I love you. Probably when, my brother in Christ, please do not do that. Please. Ow. I realized writing was my passion probably when I couldn't go a week without thinking about characters or sentences, or I'd see something just in my everyday life and I'd ask myself, how could I describe that in words? And I truly can't see myself doing anything else for the rest of my life that would bring me as much love, that would bring me as much joy as writing and creating. And now for books, we have 2 bookish questions. The first one is, what's your favorite genre to read? I read pretty much every genre on earth. I love every genre. I don't think I have a favorite. I love romance. It makes me feel very comforted. It helps a lot with my anxiety. I love contemporary fantasy. It makes me feel as though I'm living in a world that is tainted and tinted by magic. And I love mystery. I love mystery so much. It gets my brain thinking, but it also comforts me a lot. Murder mysteries. I love horror. I love gothic. I also love sci-fi. I took a class on writing and reading sci-fi in college, and ever since then I've grown a deep appreciation for sci-fi. I think I already say gothic. I love gothic. I love the atmosphere of gothic stories. I love fantasy. I love immersing myself in the new world. I love stories. I don't think I have a favorite genre. I think I love them all. Oh, next question is hard. What are a few of your favorite books? I don't know that I can answer this. It's difficult. I mean, okay, The Lunar Chronicles is a series that is near and dear to my heart because, again, it got me into writing, which is a big part of my life, and it got me back into reading. I love a lot of Emily Henry books because I feel like she writes in a way that I aspire to write. I love Pride and Prejudice so much. I love The Great Gatsby. Pride and Prejudice, The Great Gatsby are some of my favorite classics. Alright, we have moved outside of my room because my blinds were killing me. The next question is from Kelly, whose channel I love, and she asked, when did you first realize you loved cats? Which I love this question. I have, you know what, actually, look at my earring. It's a little cat. I have 3 cats. I've introduced them all before, and I actually am a very thankful victim. No, I'm a very, I've been blessed multiple times by the cat distribution system because I have 3 cats and 2 of them I did not intend to have. My first cat I got when I went to get my hair done, and he was a little baby. He had been abandoned in the backyard of the salon, so I simply took him. I simply made him mine. And then my second cat, Tinsley, I adopted her, and then my third cat, Truffle, I got whilst I was in college. I worked for Domino's as a pizza delivery girl, and one of my coworkers found a box of kittens on the side of the road, and I was like, I will be taking one, thank you very much. So the cats, I did not find the cats, they found me. Last question that I have in just the life section is, what was the culture shock you had when moving to America? So I feel like I've talked about this a little. I feel like I talk about it a lot, actually. I'm Nigerian. I moved to the United States at the age of 13. Yeah, the biggest culture shock I would say was the education system. In Nigeria, we graduate at 16 and then you're off to university. But here, you graduated at 18, so I came back and I took essentially a couple steps back in school because I had to slow down. I had to go slower, which I actually think worked great for me and how I learn. This video is so long, but hopefully I'll be able to cut it and remove all of my rambling. I don't know if I answered any of the questions coherently or well. I don't know. I hope this was at least a bit entertaining and you were able to learn a little bit more about me. Thank you so much if you gave a question. Thank you for giving questions. And just overall, thank you for being here. I appreciate you so much. Thank you for following along on my journey. This is gonna be hellish to edit, so I need to get to it. If you want to find me on any other social medias, I have Instagram and TikTok and Pinterest. It's all linked down below if you want to chat some more and hang out over there. But aside from that, that's it. Thank you so much for watching this video. I will see you in my next one, and have a good rest of your day. Are you drinking water? Go drink some water. Drink some water right now. Right now. You drank some? Good, thank you. All right, I'm gonna go now. Bye.